I'm not overly familiar with the passages that apparently make people stop believing in the Bible. Or at least the ones that people declare are the ones that make them stop believing. Because I'm pretty sure they're merely a catalyst to the general idea of losing one's faith. The few passages that people reference as the reason they lost their faith, I've been able to go over and smooth out, at least as far as I can tell.
I will cover more of those when I have time soon.
However, people might not do the same thing. They might not look at something and think, this is a problem we need to sort out. No, they might think, I don't like this, I don't want to do it. Could be that it's too hard, it could be because they just don't like the way it's going, or they just think, that's nasty, I'm not reading anymore. Could be down to an issue of commitment, potentially. But interestingly enough, I came across a video
happening here.
Book is in timeout.
Why?
Book Goblin is going to pick Book back up in 10 seconds. And when Book Goblin does, Book better fix what Book Goblin just read, or Book will go back in timeout.
What did you just read?
Doggy is not moving.
Oh no!
When Book Goblin picks Book back up, Doggy better be alive.
Hurting the dog, that's...
Unacceptable!
It's a beautiful idea, very funny. Also a bit bonkers, if you ask me, because, well, the whole point of it is, it's a book. It can't change anything, it's just how you choose to read it. You find that in several places. Some people don't even like actually reading a book about a character who has some significant flaws. Where I was to point out those flaws make them a more relatable character. It's interesting how some people read a book. But it's often how they respond to bits that they find hard or don't like. If anything, some people might do the same about certain tasks. I'll get back to that in a moment, but it's not just books, it's other forms of media. My partner, just the other week, she was watching The Walking Dead. Yes, as you can imagine. It's not a pretty show. It's got great characters, it's fantastic in what it does. But if you get attached to the characters, you tend to lose faith remarkably quickly. Often what she does is simply stop watching, watches something else, or just goes, makes dinner, goes to bed. God bless her for that. Which reminded me of the Book Goblin doing just that. There are other tasks that people might find are too hard or too unpleasant to actually get through. But you'll be amazed how often people tend to throw that on the bus and say they don't want it, they don't like it. It is pointless. To be fair, I struggle with that. You know what it was? My shoelaces. I have dyspraxia, which is a coordination disorder. That causes all manner of problems for me with fine fiddly tasks. And you do start to wonder, when am I going to use this? I wear Velcro shoes these days, which works okay. But for a while, I couldn't find anything in my size that didn't have laces. So I ended up improvising some crude knots that happened to work. Other things people might find rather ridiculous and boring. Could be, for example, walking to a place. Could be walking the dog. Could be tidying their room. Sewing. I found that very fiddly. I honestly found writing really difficult for a while. But interestingly enough, atheists will often tell you it's the things that we don't like to look at that are the very things that we need to look at the most. I sort of wonder whether that's the thing that they forget. They just don't like something and so decide, I'm going to reject it from my worldview. Or I'm going to look at it and figure out a way that works for it. And you find if you look at things in different ways and look at things from the perspective of those people that are in that position, you can find it grows on you. That might be the sort of wrong term. But certainly, you understand why it says it, why they say it, and why they're doing such a thing. The best example in the modern day is, interesting enough, J.K. Rowling. Yes, even Stephen Fry's come out to say she's a lost cause, we can't do anything for her, she's been radicalised. I would say consider where her argument stems from. It's not bigotry. It's not about being one sex. It's not anything like that. If you bear in mind, she herself was sexually assaulted when she was younger, and quite often has received threats as similar during her time as an author, particularly of Harry Potter. You'll find that there's an awful lot of other feelings behind her vehement, how can I put it? Had a word in my head. Her vehement opposition, that's it, of the trans rights movement, particularly to do with trans women entering women-only shelters. And the attitude of the Scottish Government, or at least the Supreme Court here in Britain, towards women of that kind, and indeed towards trans women, one could say that's not a problem anymore. But it certainly was when J.K. Rowling started. And certainly when her message got out there. I've already covered something similar in another video, which I called the transgender paradox. I had a similar fear of teenagers with spiky hair, lots of piercings, even short hair, or bald, shaved heads, due to my severe bullying as a child. It's something you figure out. For some people have that trauma for life. And if you forget about that, then realistically, you'll know better than the people trying to bash down trans rights. People who have been bullied for their feminine actions, for their female masculinity, all that sort of thing, for trying to express themselves honestly. It sounds shocking and sounds ridiculous when you try and put it in a different way. But again, if you're in that position, you will understand. That's why I say experience matters a great deal. Personal experience in particular. And if you don't accept someone's personal experience of a situation, you will not understand their position on anything. And if you understand whom a message is aimed at, then you'll understand that message all the more. At this moment, I'm working on an essay about the slave economy. which will help explain the actual position of Deuteronomy on slavery. Deuteronomy, Exodus, and indeed Leviticus. Because we're not paying attention to it as people who would, in fact, be receiving it. We don't need to. Does that mean that it's not applicable? Not necessarily. We need to fully understand why that message was sent. So we can understand the position and what we have risen from. All thanks to that commandment. It's interesting to think that realistically, the rolling knowledge, as I come to think of it, was the bulldozer of knowledge, doesn't break new ground by destroying the old one. No. Oh no. It's breaking new ground, but it requires the old ground to give it the purchase. It may need a new approach at some points, particularly when going up against things that the old ground is not designed for. But that, interestingly enough, is the reason why people using the scientific method to talk about Jesus and say he can't exist aren't getting anywhere with it, because science and history are two completely different disciplines. Both rely on evidence, but some require less evidence or even just basic paper. History does repeat itself, there's no denying that, we see that constantly. But it's not deliberately set out to be repeatable. If anything, it's proving a law of stupidity, which is you try doing the same thing and expecting different results. You could say the difference between stupidity and science in that case is science recognises it, notes it down, and then should apply a different method. However, atheists don't seem to do that. Certainly the ones that are trying to talk against religion. They keep applying the same old methods, it's just not working. So what do? They say, no, it's clearly not working. And leave it at that, because it's a tried and tested method. You may have had a bit of a wobble at one stage, but hey, it still works. That was how they found out about Neptune and why they spent several years looking for planet Vulcan. Another video in the works is to do with that and certainly involves those types of observations, so stay tuned for that. I believe it's about Christopher Hitchens. So we can bring all these rambling bits together. Some people just start off looking at a situation, looking at a book, a piece of media. They don't like it. They put it down and sometimes hardly ever pick it up again. I very nearly did that with horsemanship, because the horse I was working with was just pushing me to the limits. I could not work with her. You know what I did? I didn't put it down. I sought advice. They helped me out. I advanced. And I must say, it improved me no end, being able to learn from all that. A lot of hard work, but you get there in the end. You can give yourself a chance. And more importantly, give the same thing a chance again. I'm not saying constantly keep trying even though it's clearly not working. But don't give up on it first off. Sometimes all it takes is a different perspective, and that makes all the difference. Be it someone's view on a particular issue, like slavery in the Bible, or J.K. Rowling's view on trans people. Sometimes you just need to step back, remove your skepticism for a moment, and just consider what there is. If you remain overly analytical, overly particular about certain things, you start to see the holes in the tea towel rather than the colours in the picture. Or start complaining about a tea stain on that very same tea towel, when realistically, in comparison to the rest of the image, it is nothing. Finally, consider, are you remaining static in a single worldview just because so far it's not let you down? Or are you willing to consider something different? It's not going to completely destroy your worldview. It's not going to completely rewrite the world as you see it. But it can explain things greater than what you currently have in your wheelhouse. So bear all that in mind if you can. I'll try writing a summary of the comments. Stay humble, stay safe, and God be with you, my friends.